Welcome to Duncan Thorin Shield's YouTube channel. I managed to con Duncan into convincing his friend to pay me thousands of dollars as a professional Counter-Strike player, so maybe he can convince you that some of his analysis is correct.
Right, we're here for another, well, the second ever episode of Strat Book. Me and LEGIJA here, and we've got HUNDEN here, is going to be our guest. Here's a simple way, because let's be real, you're all going to pretend now because of MAD Lions. Like, oh, I know who HUNDEN is, aside from like the memes on Reddit. Like, you don't, but here's the easy way you can sort of know who he is. Think about teams like this. Astralis, TSM, Dignitas, Heroic, North. Right, you remember all those teams, right? All the teams like that. Delete those. All the other Danish teams. He was leading all the other Danish teams. Every other name you can ever remember. He was in all those other ones, just not all those ones that you know. And now is in Heroic as a coach. Which, by the way, you know what, we'll get into it. That kind of says everything about his career. He finally got in Heroic as a coach, not as the IGL. What about that then, HUNDEN? Let's start there, because the weird thing about your reputation is you're one of those guys where, you know, in football there's a very famous saying. It's like, oh, it's like he's a player's player. It's like the guy that like maybe the fans don't recognise this guy's really good, but all the other players know this guy's sick. Like maybe some guy who plays like an obscure position, like he's a sweeper defender or something, you know, and so a casual fan can't see it. That's actually the status I feel like you have, dude, because a lot of fans won't know you, because like I say, you weren't in all those big teams. You didn't have like Config as your star player when Config was Config. You had him before then. You had all these players before. But if you talk to the other in-game leaders in the scene, you have a really sick rep, actually. I think nearly all of them acknowledge you as like someone who brought up talent. They all know if they play your teams in some bullshit online qualifier, they might have to actually worry about getting knocked out of that. Like, you have quite an interesting rep, right? Do you get the same sense?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think people respect me a lot, especially on the Danish scene. Like, all the in-game leaders is talking about me. And what I have done for the Danish scene is fucking awesome, I guess.
What about you, LEGIJA? When did you first hear about HUNDEN and stuff? You come from 1.6, right? You didn't know him from Source or anything, did you?
No. I played 1.6, yeah.
And I played Source.
Yeah, I know that. I don't know. It was pretty much at the beginning, kind of CS:GO when he fully started to play. And obviously, you've always saw the memes on the internet, but yes, obviously you don't know the actual background. But yeah, he's been always very respected. Especially I really respected you a lot, and I think I showed it on Twitter a couple times. Yeah, I just have a very good. I just like the way how you lead a team and how you approach a team, and I would like to go a little bit into that.
Yeah, later. Of course. Right, listen, obviously, if people don't know this, actually, to me, one of the premises behind why memes are funny is it's like that famous saying that, like, you know, I think the saying goes, like, in every lie, there's a grain of truth or something, you know. It's like that with jokes. Like, they have to have some little element that have some truth to it. That's what makes it, and then it makes it funny how you kind of, what you do with it creatively, obviously. So that meme, that basically is like the reason why you're God HUNDEN is because you're like the bottom fragger of every fucking game is the joke, right? But what people don't get is that's just the most extreme example of what now is I've done a lot of this in my career to explain it to people. A very famous premise, which is whenever I would set up my model of the team, you notice I always make it that whoever the in-game leader is, he has to in theory frag the least. I always set that up as the model from the beginning of time to now whenever I do my videos. And as a result, a lot of people know you kind of give the IGL a break about fragging. Like, he's got other things he has to do in the team, and also he's actually trying to enhance the fragging of other players in the server. So if anything, it's not like a stat you look at in isolation. But I notice in the last few years, especially, there's been this big push from a lot of like the other analysts and the people who do the events that I always push back on them with, where they all try to make it like that was the old world of Counter-Strike. You can't do that anymore. Now you know the in-game leader's got a frag, and I feel like they're just taking weird examples like Nitro or fucking Glaive. People who are like aliens, basically, where when sometimes they like frag out completely. I always think like, dude, like almost no one else can do that. Like even go below them, you're going to instantly hit in-game leaders where, yeah, we're talking about a tier 1 level. So it's not like they're getting out fragged by nobody. They get out fragged by the best players in the world. I feel like by default, it's almost never going to be true, right, LEGIJA, that you're going to have the in-game leader be anywhere reasonable as a fragger.
It's very rarely, I think. And I also don't think necessarily it has to be like that. But obviously, if you see like teams, for example, like Astralis and Liquid, those teams that who have a leader that is fragging MIB Arbecten or SK,
yes,
a fragger that a leader that is fragging as well, this makes a team maybe a champion, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't want to like say anything else, but like players like Gobi, HUNDEN, or I don't know, there's several other in-game leaders. Obviously, they didn't make it to the number 1-1, but they brought their team always to a fucking certain level, which was like top 10, top 15, which is a huge, huge statement. in CSGO today. And yeah, I don't think that you will find that too often. And I don't think that it's too necessary. But for the last step, I guess, I think everyone in the team has to step up fragging-wise.
What do you think about this topic, Hunden?
Yeah, I think if you want to be a consistent top 3 team, I think you need everyone to frag on a decent level. Much better than me, to be honest. And we see that with Big now as well. Like, they have Tabson, who is also fragging a lot. And when they had got B, they made it into top 5, I guess. And then they dropped out of it right after because they couldn't stay consistent. Because they really, really often they played 4 and 5 because they needed the last guy who could also frag. So I think LEGIJA is right about this, that if you want to be a consistent top 5, top 3 team, you need a fragging in-game leader as well, that's for sure.
Right, well, let's talk about that a bit then, like as to why maybe in teams the in-game leader doesn't frag as well, or it's actually just harder in some ways. Because I have some theories in mind, so I've got one I'll throw out for you. When I used to be an in-game leader myself, many, we're talking like almost like 2 decades ago, the beginning of Counter-Strike, basically. One thing people don't know is a lot of the things I actually learned myself back then, I was able to apply to the professional game years later, because I always try and think, I don't like look at what someone else says and go, right, well, that person's cool, so what he says is right. I always do what you do in philosophy. It's called thinking from first principles. You try and have concepts that you understand about the game and how it operates, and you go down to those and you have to build up the idea that you're coming with. So one thing I came up with as an in-game leader, and I noticed a lot of the other in-game leaders, even today in Pro CS do this, is when I was trying to set my team up, because, and listen, I'm sure a lot of people can relate, I didn't want to be an in-game leader, mate. I just got sick of having bad in-game leaders and no one else doing the job, like no one watching the demos, no one designing the strats, and everyone just thinking, even if they were the in-game leader, I just say, we do this strat, and then everyone does whatever they want. So I wanted to figure out, essentially I did it, because I wanted to do the puzzle of like, this guy over here, my player A, who's my best guy, how do I make him even more effective? Player B, who's my worst guy and everyone else wants him kicked, how do I make him not cost the team the round? Like, how do I make him do something like vaguely useful? When I was trying to do this, right, one thing I came upon very early on is, as an in-game leader, I would just basically make it way quicker, and as a shortcut, I would just pick whatever the most, like, not hardest, but the most complicated part of the strat was, like one flash that has to be a perfect timing when someone else does something else. I would just do that myself. I would be like, you know what? Rather than explain to this guy why he has to do it, the 50 things he's looking for, why don't I just do that myself? And then his job, listen, I'll give the extreme version. Let's say I have some guy who's like a config, like super aimer. I just really do tell him, like, when I say go, you just run in and shoot them in the head. Like, that's like his job in that. It's not even a job, is it? The joke is I'm pretending he's got a job. Like, I've taken all the job away from him. Do you guys relate to that? I noticed there's a lot of in-game leaders. I notice when I've talked to people like MSL, it feels like they have a similar vibe. Like that's kind of part of what they'll never notice, because that doesn't show up on the scoreboard. Like there's no stat that shows that I did that. It's like it's invisible. But if you're on my team, you would know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to see it. Like every time I have done strats for my teams, and there's always a role where you have to do a lot of flashes and stuff like that. I have always been that guy, because then I don't have to explain to my star players that I have to do all those flashes. So I think you're right about that one. When you're an in-game leader, I think you just have to go in and take the last position spot for your team, so you don't. I don't know how to say it. Like, so you don't. Fill so much into the team, so you create space for the 4 stars on the team. That's how I have done it all the time, and I think that's a good way to create a team, in my opinion.
I fully agree. I mean, most of the in-game leaders also, let's say you don't play a set strategy basically, and you play something on the fly, contact somewhere, and obviously 100% in your head what is your goal. You explain it briefly to your team during the round, but they will not 100% always know, okay, this is the goal, this is whatever. So if you have the flashbangs left, most of the time you will put yourself into this kind of support role, and obviously stay behind and not be the star person who is getting a flash. Instead, you will throw the flash for a teammate. But also, I think for the in-game leaders, what the heavy issue is, a big problem that they're not fragging, is Counter-Strike is such a focus-based game. Like, you have to be tremendously focused on your crosshair, pre-aiming, reading where the opponents could be and whatsoever. And as an in-game leader, you are talking constantly, you're moving your players around, you're thinking for several other players, you have to look on the radar the whole time.
Yes.
So it's a lot focus losing, which is like very, very important in the game and for duels in general. And also, like, the regular players or normal players, they have way more time also outside of practice prepare individually, play individually. The Ingame leader has to prepare for strategies, for the opponents, think of mistakes that we did in practice or whatsoever. So he has so much more work to do, and it just goes on your head.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give someone an example. Nowadays, sadly, we're not in the old days where, like, you know, if you're a CS player, you were like, League of Legends or Dota, like, that's beneath me. Like, nowadays, everyone's played every game. Like, so people are going to know the reference, right? If you ever play Dota or you play League of Legends and you play the supportive roles, like jungler, support, you're supposed to spend half the time looking at the mini-map. So as a result, you're not just focusing on, like, it's the equivalent of the crosshair, like the person who's the AD carry is or the mid lane or something, because you're trying to have map awareness. You're trying to know where are they, where have I seen them, what am I thinking of? So as a result, you can't have the same, like, laser focus that the guy whose job is just win this lane, kill this, like, he's got a different... Now, by the way, that's a different skill set. Like, obviously, he has to be amazing at that as a result. He's got the one thing to focus on. But I think that's a good point. Like, when you watch CS, that's another reason why, if you ever watch as a pro game, if you ever see the in-game leader, like some guy, like a JW type person, just pushes randomly through a smoke and kills this guy instantly, I guarantee that in-game leader was looking at the fucking radar trying to tell someone, like, right, come back. What the fuck he's doing? Like, in that moment, he's not watching his crosshair there. So I know he looks like a noob, like, wow, look at his reactions. Yeah. In that scenario, like, it's not his fault, is it? Like, he's thinking of something more important, basically.
This is what I also have to actually say for casters, that they often make the mistake that they sort of blame people, or they don't notice a mistake that someone is making just because God fucking knows whatever he was doing, watching the radar, he didn't hear steps and the TeamSpeak was fucking wild going on. Everyone is talking on TeamSpeak and he didn't hear any steps, and then obviously he won't aim and he gets killed. So I noticed that actually quite often that it happens to players.
Also, another thing about in-game leaders that is going to always mean they have the worst score is look at how many in-game leaders, the Danish scene is infamous for this. I love it as a style. You make the in-game leader, like, I know that role doesn't really exist, but if he's on that side of the map, the primary entry, like, he goes in first. And then, by the way, I always said this is why I used to think people did overrate Forest. He was always in the second in position. He was basically just baiting Freiburg or fucking Exist, whoever went in first. His job was like, they're shooting Exist, and my joke is, while they're shooting Exist, Forest just shooting them. So if he already has the best aim, of course he's fucking getting a million kills. Like, if he doesn't get a million kills, I'd ask what's he doing wrong. But on the counter side of that, if you're a fan, you're not thinking it through. When you see Exist or Freiburg in that scenario have a bad score, they should be getting some of Forest's kills on their scoreboard by the logic of that. They're setting that up. So as an in-game leader, again, it's just another classic move. Because it's so hard to get people to coordinate. I mean, everyone who's played a pickup game knows this, like a face-it game with randoms. Everyone knows if you're on T-side of Mirage, dude, you almost need like a fucking cattle prod to make someone go in first. Like, they won't go because no one wants to run in and just get shot by like 3 people in the site, right? Everyone wants to go in afterwards. So oftentimes the in-game leader makes himself the entry, but like a hard entry. And his job even is, I'm just kind of literally create space so this beast guy can come in and kill everyone. Like, my best example for this in CS is, because of how his career ended, a lot of people think Existence was a shit in-game leader, right? And they think he was a shit player in general. And one of the areas, right, is they think he was a low fragging in-game leader because his stats usually weren't that great, right? But they don't know. If you know, like, Source, and in fact, if you've ever just seen this guy play individually, for an in-game leader, this guy had really good skills, actually. He could be a fragger. But the point is, when he would have, like, his amazing Very Games teams, where, like, the other 4 players, like, some of the best in the world, he would just make himself, like, a hard entry at times and just be like, well, if I create the space for these 4 people, I'm going to win the round. Like, who gives a fuck if I'm dead? So it's a different mentality to me.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. Like, that's the way Danish CS is. Like, me and MSL, when he played Rifle, you don't do that anymore. Sad for his team, I guess. But I think that's the way you play in Denmark with the in-game leader. He's going in first, and then you always have the star behind him. I had shoes in MAD Lions, and back in Dignitas with the IC and MSL was also a deadly one when they were running together.
The formula just works, right? It's just proven.
Yeah, exactly. And that was also the hardest one for me when I went from an in-game leader to a coach, because I couldn't do that. I couldn't tell some of the younger players to run in first to create space for another one. So I had to try. I'm still trying to create a system where this is still working out, because I think that is the best way to play CS, in my opinion.
What do you think, LEGIJA?
I agree in that. Quickly to go on the role that you said, Duncan, with Forest as a beta. Many people, or in general in Counter-Strike, often the word beta is a very negative thing.
Of course.
He's been baiting his player again,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah. But many people don't know that baiting is actually a fucking huge skill. You have
It's trade fragging. If you do it correctly, it's just trade fragging.
You have to be smart at baiting your teammate.
Yes.
And that's why I, for example, never had issues if Tapson was baiting me, because if he's baiting me, I know that he has a plan behind that, and I know that he baits correctly, which means baiting. He has to be behind me directly. He has to always notice or know kind of in his head, what waypoint is Nico going to do now? What waypoint do I have to do? Where do I have to cover him as first? Obviously, he doesn't want me to just die. So he will have a certain pre-aim or like cover me from a different angle that I'm not walking. So there's a lot of skill to that as well. I just wanted to point it out quickly.
Yeah. No, listen, when I used to like banter Brazilian fans just because of how ridiculous they are on the internet, right? Well, the way I would make them mad is I would just say like Coldzera is the greatest baiter of all time, but they don't know LEGIJA. That the joke is I'm also giving him a mad compliment there. When he does the baiting role, dude, I've never seen anyone better at it. Like if he's behind me, I'd love to go in first. Of course, if I'm first, I'd just fucking press W. This guy's going to clean up everything behind us if he comes in and win the round and win the 1v3 if he's in one,
100%. That's why I said also AWPers back then, it was like the smartest thing if you bait.
Yes.
Because in X-on-X situations, the AWP is just unbeatable. Especially back then when you had like the ult movement and whatsoever. And Guardian, for Oscar, for example, he was the biggest fucking baiter, but at one point he was one of the best players in the world. He was winning like 1v3s, 1v2s. He was insanely good. So, yeah.
I even think when you want to have, like, if we think of, like, the T side of the game and you think of entry players, etc., I even think it shows that fans haven't played very much, like, real competitive CS. When I say that, by the way, matchmaking and face-it pickups don't count as real CS. Like, I'm talking about you're in a team, you play with the same players, you play against similar opposition, you're learning, like, the meta game of Counter-Strike at the pro level. When you play that game, like, if you're a fan and you're making your dream team, right, I'm putting this player in this position, the dream team is always going to go with the naive concept that's basically like a sort of bit like Team Liquid like last year. You're just going to put two straight fire aimers as your two entry type players and you're going to think, well, perfect, because then they both run in, they shoot everyone in the head and we win. It's like, actually that so rarely works. Like, there's a reason why when MIBR famously had Phelps and Fur, the teams were never good, but in theory both players play the same style. There's a reason, by the way, guys, they didn't just put those as the two entries. For a start off, they basically both would be playing the same position, so that'd be a nightmare. And then where's the setup? Where's the teamwork going to be? Like, actually just running out and both trying to aim at people. That's the point I want to get to here. Creating space in a site is different from running in the site and shooting people. Like, those are two different. I know it might sound like it's the same, but the whole point is it's what is the mentality in your mind. Like, if I'm creating space, for example, I don't stop immediately and take like an aim duel with the guy who's jiggling the corner. I might run past that and I make someone else have to flash me off. Like, talk about this HUNDEN, because I know as an in-game leader, again, it's part of designing the strat that's invisible. You can't see the space. It's literally nothing there. So what are you trying to go for in that regard?
I think you're completely right. Like, and also the team play between those two who's taking the map control together. Like the guy who's creating space and the guy who have to trade. Like, I think it's hard to play both positions, and I think it's even harder to play the guy who's creating space for younger players, because they always think about themselves and how they are performing as an individual player. So I think it's really, really hard to see also for the main. I don't know, the guys who's watching CS, all the fans, they can't see what we actually do on the server, and I think it's really, really hard to see also for the experts who's analyzing the game afterwards.
Like, put it this way, one of my favourite guys who, it's amazing because he's even fragging from doing this, is that guy Art on Furia. Like, dude, if I was playing CS, listen, I'd take like the greedy role like Forrest and I'd just bait everyone, get all the kills, obviously because I'm making the game so it'd be fun for me. Dude, I want that guy in front of me. I want him running out. He'll actually create space and kill him. Like, I think that's so sick.
I think for me, he personally is the new Fur kind of guy. Very unpredictable, crazy moves, and the good thing about this team is, like, I've played them now since I'm in North America quite a bit, and it's actually disgusting because regardless of what moves he's doing, his team is adapting so fucking well to whatever he is doing. So let's say they play Nuke and he's like actually very insane, like going down the vent, they're making certain moves, they're camping. Sometimes he's not doing anything, and his team is adapting so well to that, and that's what I like to see. And that's also a very, very huge skill to have. To actually use a person like that, which makes them very diverse if you think of it, because he actually does very, very often moves during the game.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think Art got like sometimes he got some really bad games where nothing is working for him because like teams have prepared for him, and I think it's easy to prepare for a guy like him. Like of course he got, I don't know, 10 or 15 plays on each map, and if you know how to counter them, then he starts to look like an idiot, and then he looks like the stupid player on the server. But in general, I think he is like the best guy in the world right now to create space for his team. That's for sure.
I'll tell you someone also who's in this vein of players who like, it's basically like that. I know it's the joke the casters say it's like the press W religion. It's like you just believe in going forwards all the time, which I love as a way to describe it. Because like I said, most players are fucking pussies in CS, like they'll never go first. So people like that, if you're crazy enough to do that, like I love you, I'm all in already. A guy that, it's sad because at the moment no one knows what's going to happen in his career, but he was a player of yours, HUNDEN, is Bobsky. Dude, I remember when this guy back in the day was in other teams, he wasn't playing this way. Like when I saw him in Flashpoint, the impact he was having, because again, we tend to use that word for these players to show that it's not even just the kills, what they do to the server, how they change the makeup of the game. Like, I remember I saw in Flashpoint when he was playing against teams like MIBR. Dude, they would literally, it's like they got to experience what it's like for Fur to be on the other team. They would just be taking spots like, what the fuck, how is he here again? Like, what, he's pushing me in my face again like this. And you think to yourself every time, right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit where he killed me last time and I'm going to get him when he comes this time. And then these fuckers just come and kill you again. It must be so demoralizing. Like I retweeted a quote the other day that it reminds me of, which is, if you beat your opponent at his strongest position, you completely demoralize him. It's one thing if you just attack his weakness, he's like, well, I can't get to that, you know. If you just go head to head with his strength and you just do the same shit over and over again and he can't do anything, you just mentally break him, forget win the game. So what was this guy like? Because in your team, I feel like it's when he really actually started this transformation into this player. So who is Bobsky, HUNDEN?
Yeah, but he's a fucking crazy guy. I have to admit that one. But the way he's lurking on pretty much every team, but like he's playing like B apps on Mirage, and if he feels like he can kill the guy on B, he just go for the pick all the time. He got so much confidence, and he's creating a lot of space on the outer side of the map. So he created so much space for me, so I could take good map control together with Shoes, and I think it was easy to play around him. We had a lot of talks about it because sometimes he died too much, in my opinion, but we fixed it in a way that everything was working out, and that's why he was shining so much, because we always talked about, me and him, how we were adapting to each other. So I really loved to play around him because it was pretty easy when we fixed everything, and he created so much space for me as well, and that was nice to try to see that someone was creating space for me, so it was easy to get map control because they had so much focus on him, especially when we played Nuke. He always dropped in Vent. He could get down in Vent every single round if he wanted to do that, and that meant so much to me. So I could take ramp easy, I could go to outside easy, I could do whatever I wanted to do with my map control outside of him. So that was nice to play around him, and I think that's the new meta of playing Counter-Strike right now. That's one of the lurkers is also trying to create space, so the map control is easier for pretty much every single team.
What do you think, LEGIJA?
Yeah, I fully agree on that. Especially what you said with the whole confidence thing. I think, especially for Flashpoint, obviously, Bobsky, I know he's a very good player also in his previous teams that he played, but your team was loaded so much with confidence, and same goes with Habu, for example. Their Counter-Strike was like nothing that it's looking right now, for example. It a lot comes to like having confidence, and you guys had a very, very good run prior to Flashpoint, and I think that also came for you guys in the cards. But yeah, I think he's in general a very talented player and actually insanely good.
Let's talk a bit about Tricked / MAD Lions, this team, but I want to talk mainly in the era when you had them, HUNDEN, because the thing that I found interesting is it wasn't like, I mean, everyone understands this with in-game leaders. It's not like you just remove the in-game leader and add another one and everything stays from the old guy and then this new guy just, no. Like when you remove the guy, you also remove some of the things he brought, and then whoever you add that's new, you're hoping you bring whatever he brings. So even though the rest of the players still remained good when Asilian came in, I mean, one thing I instantly saw was like the map pool was like chopped in half overnight, and like he in fact was even avoiding maps like Overpass that you used to play whenever you needed to. Like if you ever needed that as like a punish pick, you'd go into an opponent on those, you know? Like, so I definitely saw differences. When you had the guys in MAD Lions / Tricked, what was kind of the setup when you had those guys? How did you envision that team?
I think everyone was pretty much open-minded about everything. We tried to change the map pool every third month or something like that. So we changed the perm ban all the time because I think everyone was working so hard. They had so much confidence. So if we wanted to play Mirage for the next tournament, we just started to play it. We had it as a perm ban for like the first 6 months of 2019, and we brought it into the map pool, and it was one of our best maps instantly. So I was surprised to see how we did this, because like everyone was working out perfectly. And I think one of the main things about this MAD Lions trick team was that me and Bobsky was working out so great together.
Right.
We had our fights, but in the end of the day, I think the team play between me and him was just like above everyone else in Denmark except for Astralis, to be honest, and that's why we won so much, to be honest.
Actually, on those lines, I've got a question for you, because on the last episode when we had Peacemaker, LEGIJA basically admitted that when they had Smooya and Big, listen, Smooya himself obviously definitely fucked up a bunch and did a lot of stupid stuff, but because they're reflective guys, the big guys themselves realised we also didn't really have the right approach for him, because actually, listen, it might sound harsh because it sounds like you're setting a really bad example. Like, if you were a teacher, you would never say this, but I'm sorry, if you have a lot of talent and in a very unique way, the rules don't apply to you in the same way. I'm sorry. Like, the rule that applies to like the average guy, the whole point is I can replace him. That's why he has all the strict rules. If you have a lot of talent, like, I'll put up with a lot of shit if you can do a lot for my team. Like, is that part of like when you had Bobsky in your team? Because listen, if people are surprised at this move now where he might be benched or he might be leaving, I'm not at all. Like, the whole time I was hearing, even when they won Flashpoint, I was hearing stuff like, this guy's fucking driving people mad, like he might be out of the team. And I was like, what the fuck? Aren't they winning all the games? They were like, that's how you know, by the way, that someone's a real troublemaker. You win the game and people want him kicked. It's like, dude, we're winning. Like, so I have to say, you seem like a super chilled out guy, HUNDEN. Like, if you have a guy where he's a bit of a troublemaker, but you win the game, you do the equation in your head. It's like, it's worth it if you win, right?
I think so, to be honest. Like, if you have a player like Bobsky, you need to like find a way to handle him. That's the way I see it, and I think I had the same with some other players as well. Like, if you win and he's playing good, I think you need to work it out with him. And I'm a bit worried to see them if they have benched Bobsky. I don't know. I don't think they will make it to the same level again. That's my guess. I don't think they can find a Dane who can match Bobsky right now. Of course, if they find someone from Astralis, but they will never do that.
Yes.
But in the end of the day, I don't think they can find a replacement for Bobsky. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, I'm really worried about that. Like, I actually genuinely feel the same thing. Listen, if things are really bad, maybe they have to. I can't judge that. That's for them to decide. But I agree with you. The problem is, who else is going to do that role? Like, who's going to play his style? Like, maybe you can reinvent the team, but that sounds like a lot of work. Like, if you think removing the guy is like the shortcut, it isn't. This is the fucking long route. You have to redo everything. What do you think, LEGIJA?
First of all, I think that the thing is also with a team like Tricked, you have HUNDEN, who is like obviously older than the rest of the team. I don't know, Sirsh was quite old, I'm guessing, right?
Roy was quite
It's Roy who's older.
Yeah, he's not the youngest as well. But you have to take in consideration that these guys, let's say you have a player like Bobsky, for example, he's a quite heavy kid, maybe a little bit toxic. He's judging a lot of bad plays or whatsoever, flaming. I personally think it's not a bad attitude to have. This means this kid wants to win to a certain extent, unless he's actually a piece of shit. But obviously, I don't know that. But the thing is with having so many young players and this toxic kid, for HUNDEN, it's so much easier. He has experience in life. He knows how to handle. He knows how to ignore things maybe. He knows how to deal with. When he's toxic, he just fucking forgets it the next round. But younger people, most of the time, get affected. And that was kind of the same with us in Big. Gob is a very strict, not necessarily strict Ingame leader, but he will tell you if you make mistakes, and not always in the best way. He will flame you if you fuck up 3 times the same mistake, and he will let you know and he will let you feel it. But I learned that I have to learn from these moments, you know. But other people get offended by him or get like tilt or whatsoever. If he's having like a bad practice day, he's flaming a lot. It happens, man. It happens. He has to fucking deal with mistakes from your teammates so often. And yeah, it also depends a lot like how experienced your team in general is. And that's why I think a team like Trick could have had issues because of Bobsky, and maybe that's why I replaced him. Because I can see that if it was a team like, let's say Astralis, for example, people are experienced, a little bit older. Sure. They've dealt with so many issues already in Counter-Strike. They could probably handle this guy. Whereas also he might not act like that in a team like Astralis, for example.
Yeah, that's actually, by the way, something that comes back to bite them. It's basically what cost people like Simple. Like basically, if Simple, I even told him this way back in the day. If when he'd first come on the pro scene, he literally had just been mute. He just couldn't talk. I told him, dude, you'd have been in Navi after like 1 year. You'd have probably like won majors by now. Because he used to be like, no, I wouldn't. I was like, it was only your personality that put people off. And the irony is, as LEGIJA is saying here, what you really need is the veterans around you who know like what you bring and also know how to help you get past that. But you're in a catch-22. You're not going to get to the level where the veterans will take you because you can't get into a team that's good enough now. Therefore, you can't beat the veterans and show them that you're all the player they need. So you're trapped in hell. Like, you're in purgatory. You won't ever get to where you need to be. Like, there's a lot of players that have been caught in that position. It's also why I always tell young players, sadly, it's like trying to tell someone some advice they'll never take. I tell young players, just don't talk shit. Like, the guy you talk shit to today is the guy you need to recruit you in 2 years, or he's friends with the guy who's going to recruit. Like, you just don't know. You think today it's banter. It isn't. That shit lasts years. That'll do so much damage to your rep.
Yes, I fully agree on that.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And that's also why I think if Bobsky is benched, that is because he got a big opinion on how he wants to play Counter-Strike. And I think he could clash with Peacemaker a little bit about it, and Asilian as well. I think they are so far away from each other and the way they want to play CS. So that is a big topic, and I really hope they will find it out and just continue with what they have right now, because I think they got potential to make it even better than they have done this summer, to be honest.
So let's talk about... Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think is going to happen with Bobsky now?
I don't know. I think... Yeah.
Guess.
Yeah,
what are his options even?
I guess he's going to be benched from the team. I don't know. Like, I think they have too many personalities on the team now, and they don't have the same leader as I was. I was older than Asilian as well. As you said, I also got experience from my own life to handle all these small issues popping up all the time. And
right.
And I think that is the difference between me and Asilian. I'm not tilting and being toxic at all. If I want to talk with someone, I try to stay calm, but sometimes things explode, right? And that's a fair thing when you work with them for 40 hours each week. So things goes off sometimes, but in the end of the day, I think that is the difference between the two leaders who was on MAD Lions. And I see them having issues right now. That's fair enough to say, I guess.
I wanted to ask, actually, because it's a concept I'm sure you can both talk to in your teams. Another flaw I sometimes see is, even though if you're an in-game leader, like, the ideal dream that a lot of us have is like, well, since I'm in charge and I'm having to do all these fucking shit jobs and responsibilities, like, at least I should get everything my way. Like, that's the one fair thing, right, guys? I'm the one watching the demos. I'm the one planning for this. You guys were just you were with your girlfriend and he was playing some CSTM for an hour. Like, at least you're going to do what I say, right? I think in a way, that's like level 1 of being an in-game leader. That's like how you initially make your system, because you're trying to also think, right? Listen, I get blamed as the in-game leader if the strat's wrong, even if it was right. So I need to make sure every part of the machine works. You know, this cog fits into this lever, fits into this, right? That's like, there's a logic to that. But I also think personally, if you want to be in a great team, sometimes you have to literally allow an element, like it could be a star player, it could be someone who has a different vision of the game. You have to allow them to exist within whatever you're doing. And you have what in English we call creative tension. If anyone knows the stories, by the way, of all the like great rock bands, almost all of them have this, where, you know, like the guitarist and the songwriter hate each other, or some people just don't get along. But it's like, if you can find the areas where you have an overlap, where you both agree, or you can both like put your ideas into the same pot, you can make some fucking amazing CS teams. And there's some people wouldn't know some of the legendary stories where you would think, because this team won majors, they must all be friends. It's like, they aren't, dude. Like, but it was whatever they like put aside to like come together. That's why they won all the fucking championships. Yeah,
I think you're completely right. Like, I think we have done it a lot in Tricked. I think it started out with me and Bobsky creating this team together, with him taking map control and I take map control with a teammate. We tried to set him up in the beginning of the round, and then we tried to create something out of that, because I don't want to stick around with the same playstyle all the time. I always want to adjust it so it fits to all the players on the team, and that was fitting out perfect between me and Bobsky, because he thought when he joined the team that I just wanted to do executes all the time, don't do mid-round calls and stuff like that. He got actually pretty surprised about how I wanted to play the game afterwards when he came to the team. And I think in the end of 2019, Lewis came to the team as well, and then he started to come up with ideas. So I was never like a guy who just said, no, we don't do this. We just follow my things and we do my my part of the game, how I want to play it. I have always been open-minded about that, and I think that's why we took so many steps in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you also very balanced as a team, like having different ideas and different approaches to the game. But also the important thing is like having a player like Bobsky, for example, as you say, you two were working very well together, him alone taking room, you with the teammate. It comes a lot to the Ingame leader, like, or to the actual system that you create for a team, because you obviously you should base your system on the strengths of your teammates and work then from that and see how you further proceed in your game. And I think that's the most important thing that an Ingame leader has to do. Like, what are the strengths of my team and how can I in the end execute all of that?
Yeah, exactly. And I've also tried to like do it differently. Like when I have also tried to fail this one in alternate attacks. Like I played with 4 Germans who had no opinion about the game, and like no one picked it up. Like I dropped the ball out of the air, and no one was just like, I don't take that ball. I don't want to be a part of it. But I think it didn't even work out good. Like we were really fucking bad. We couldn't even make it into top 30. And today both Kito and Syrson and Tishan, all of them is playing for big. But at that point, none of them had any kind of opinion on how they wanted to play CS, and it was hard for me to create a playstyle around that, because like if no one takes the ball and bring it further for me, then it's hard for me to work it out, to be honest.
Yes.
See, LEGIJA, you know Denmark and Germany have like a shared history because they're neighbouring countries. HUNDEN's such a fucking hero. He's even fixed the German scene for you guys. He's even trained these fuckers that are in big now. Like, he really is just a hero, isn't he?
Tishan actually spoke very, very, very good about you. Like, actually very good about you.
Thank you.
We knew, and he said he learned actually a lot from you. What I also think that like the key to your success kind of with the teams that you have, especially because you never really had like these top players to work with, and you most of the time started from the bottom, like from absolutely scratch, and you work your ass up with your teammates. I think what many people should know is that having respect and how do you call it? I guess respect from your teammates is the most important thing. And I wonder whether that has to do a little bit with your previous jobs that you worked. I think you used to work in a school, correct?
Yeah, I've done that as well.
Yeah.
But
do you think that helped, like actually like knowing or having learned how to work with people together and like how to gain respect? Because I think once you lose respect as a coach or Ingame leader, doesn't matter what, it's very, very hard to maintain a healthy environment or good team actually.
By the way, when you say that, I can totally imagine HUNDEN as some sort of wacky, like Harry Potter type professor in fucking school, like you go into his class for strats or something, you know? It's like, yeah, go on, HUNDEN.
Yeah, sometimes I just show up as a Harry Potter or something like that, and then we just do strats. No, I think like I worked with, I studied some kind of like education to how to educate children and stuff like that, and I actually took that into the way I wanted to lead a team. I didn't want to be strict. I always had an open-minded thing about everything, and I think that was like, it was hard in the beginning when I had players like Freeze, because he was older than me, and I don't think he trusted my system all the time. So it got easier when I got older as well, because then I picked up younger players in Yuki and Config. All of them, like, they had so much respect for me, and they just like, when I came up with a strat, all of them was just like, yeah, we do this, and we just go for it. And then we make it further and further, and they started to come up with their opinion on how they wanted to play the game as well. And like, that's just the thing I have wanted to do all the time when I was a leader.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to ask you about was, in your style of play, especially this last one where you were Trick/MAD Lions particularly, I noticed in that team, one of the things you were doing was like, this is one thing I love, because me and LEGIJA have had this discussion many times. All the new players in CSGO who are pros, because they all come from Face It Pro League or teams like where they're playing that style, they all think, right, that like FaZe Clan is like the way you play Counter-Strike, right? Even though to me, the whole point of FaZe Clan is they're the exception that proves the rule. They're a bunch of players, at least the old lineup, that was so experienced they could get away with not having a lot of the traditional team structure, and the idea is they're just such good players they'll find a way to win anyway. But I actually think a lot of the old school principles of how you make and run a team totally apply to this day, and definitely the level where you're playing at, where the people haven't been a top pro yet. Because in HUNDEN's teams, if people don't know, he would run a lot of timing based set pieces. So he would have a round where I would guess the timer wasn't always the same. Like, I'm guessing he was reading the round and then deciding the timer, but he would really have a round where it would be like, right, when I give this command or when I'm at this position, everyone explodes on this site at this timing. And what he would try to do basically is figure out when the timing should be. But it's more like you've just got it's like, you know, those machines, I can't remember the name sadly, you know, the machines that everyone loves to make videos of on the internet, where it's like a ball bearing goes down a little like slide and it goes on and then it knocks a clock, which then goes over and makes like a frying pan going. You know the thing I'm on about where it's a machine. And the joke of it is you set the machine up perfectly, because if you don't, it'll be broken. But all you have to do at the beginning is press the button, right? After you do that, everything falls into place. It looks amazing. The good thing about that kind of a system is all these other guys don't need to make all the... What I was talking about with FaZe Clan, where really the reason why you don't need to have that timing attack is because you've got like fucking Olaf Meisters like the entry. The guy's like a genius who played that role for like 5 years and was in the best team in the world doing it. Like, he knows the timing of when to go in. Rain's going to create the space he needs to. Nico knows when to follow up on them. Like, they're basically themselves doing what you would do in the scenario. But if I've got a bunch of inexperienced players, it's going to make sure everyone's in the right space. And I noticed, dude, you could get T-side rounds off on teams where I know the CT players are better, but it doesn't matter, because it's like, think about this. If instead of my entry guy being some star on his own who takes a 1v1 duel, and if he wins it, we get that space and we take that map control. If instead 3 people just popped around that corner at whatever timing, doesn't matter how good the CT standing there is, he's not going to shoot 3 people in the head while they're all 3 shooting it. Like, the logic's simple. Like, I'm amazed people think that these are like outdated ideas on it. They clearly work. Like, they're fundamental to Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I think you're right about it. Like, doing the set execute things is a good thing to do, so the younger players don't have to think that much. They just follow the things we have done before the official games. So they just follow a system where they don't have to think; they just have to shoot. And I think that is a good way to do it in the beginning of a team, because all the set things is a way to win easy rounds against better teams, so you don't have to think that much. You are doing your things and you just do your own, and you just go blind into the side. You just follow the execute and hope it's good enough. So I think you're right. Like, we had a lot of those things, so we didn't have to think that much. And sometimes we just did a funny mid-round call about it. Like, we could see it was not working, then we just turned around and went to the other side. I think we did that at the V4 final when we played against Virtus in the final. We got totally locked down on the T side, and we needed to win one round, and we did one of our set things, and they just completely denied it, and we just turned around and went outside, and they were standing 4 and B, and we just had an A for free. So it was a mix of good mid-round calls and set pieces all the time, and sometimes Bobsky had to do his own things, and that was working out perfectly for us at that point.
What do you think about this, like, as a general principle, LEGIJA?
I kind of share your guys' opinion on that. The thing is, I think like the way that Hunden calls it. Let's pretend he's taking room with a teammate, and he has like 3 guys on the other side of the map. And as you said, like, okay, guys, when this happens, you will execute. In this round, Hunden already is playing chess with the opposite team. So for him, the chess game begins at like, let's say 1:30 already. He has a goal. He has a plan in his head. He will say, okay, guys, at 45 seconds, we will explode on A. We will take B control, blah, blah, blah. We will fake a little bit. And he's starting already he is setting up what people don't know. He is setting up on the other side the enemies where they are going to stand. Because I said it also in the other last week or 2 weeks ago with Peacemaker. Right now in Counter-Strike, it's not easy, but quite easy to tell where the cities are, for example, standing. Setups are known, setups are staying, not too many new ideas are coming, many grenades people are worried about too many grenades, because every Molotov, flashbang, HE, smoke, whatever is found already. So there's not too much diversity. So for Hunden, it's quite easy to set up a round and make a call at 1:30, because he is, based on what he is doing on the other side of the map with his teammate, he is setting up the CTs on the other side of the map already, because he knows if I'm faking at 45 seconds, 30 seconds on Inferno B, the rotator will not be on small pit. He will most likely be in CT Arch, which means his team knows that. Yes. The team is aware of that because they have spoken about it before, or they have practiced it, and they have experience about it. And yeah, so that's the way I think that most of the teams are calling, especially like teams like Hunden North, for example, Complexity, a little bit less. Big, they're playing like chess with opponents, whereas teams like FaZe, for example, they're playing more on feeling, a little bit more like set rounds. Obviously, it's a lot like out of out of the blue, kind of like reacting CS.
Yes.
But for Hunden as a actual in-game leader and like very experienced in-game leader, for him the game starts way earlier with the whole chess kind of thingy. So I really appreciate that, and I think that the meta right now in Counter-Strike is perfect to play this CS. And I think that the team that we had back then in Big, for example, would be way stronger these days if we had, like, let's say the same skill. Obviously, we don't have that. If we had the same skill, I think that we would be much better than we were back then, because of our team play and the understanding of the game was outstanding, I guess.
Sure. Right, one map I actually wanted to talk specifically about, like the meta of how you approach this map on the T side, because both you guys can talk this, is Train. Now, this is a map where it's funny that everyone talks traditionally about like Nuke and Overpass are the maps where if you get really good on them, it's so useful because so many teams don't like them. But actually, the part that they don't bother including in that is most teams at least play them. The problem with Train is nobody played it, and then everyone agreed to sort of not pick it until this year, basically. Like last year and the year before that, it was ridiculous. You almost never saw Train in pro play. It was terrible. So one of the things I've always thought is it's because as much as people think that's a map where like so much you can do, it's like it's really hard to play the T side of that map. And one reason I'll explain to a layman is, right, this is why you'll never understand if you're just a casual fan, if you watch Train T side, you will think it's just a bunch of people standing around for 1 minute and then they just run in. But before the 1 minute, they just waste a smoke that they don't go through. They just waste flashes that don't blind anyone that they're going to attack. And it's like, again, this is why I was thinking about LEGIJA. It's because they don't understand, like, it's the setup and understanding what the counters are from the CT side that make, like, the T side of Train work. Like, you could have the best T side in the world, like the best strat in the world. If you just ran it and the CTs know it's coming, you're fucked. You won't even get out into the site, like outside. You'll all be dead. That smoke you push through, there'll just be a guy waiting there. But if you know the counters, if you basically play the chess match, that's what everyone's doing, by the way, guys, for the first minute. That is the chess match. That's what those flashes out the window do, even when we go in there. And it's like, well, they didn't flash together, we're going to attack. Again, you're trying to like move the CTs around, figure out what they're going to do. And, like, give us some thoughts on this, because both of your teams basically have, again, they haven't been the most skilled teams, but they've been very good on T sides of Train. And a lot of the top teams weren't that good on T side, I noticed.
I think Train is a weird map, to be honest, and we still need to learn it in Heroic. But I think always in Trick, Mad Lions, whatever I played on, I think Train has always been the map we wanted to play. I think we have always been like top 2 in Denmark on Train, no matter what team I played on, because we were always good on it. And the thing about Train is, I think people overthink how you want to play Train. Some teams is using Ivy a lot, some teams don't. My teams pretty much never used Ivy. We just used T mid and pop a lot and try to make some concepts about how to play around those two positions to get outside control. That's the map control you can get. If you don't allow them to get T mid, then you can still execute outside. That's how I see Train. And the same with pop. Like, take the fight against the guy in pop, and if you get the control of it, then you have a good chance to win the round outside. And then you can start to do all the good fakes, go B, go A, go whatever you want to do. And I still think people overthink how you play the T side on Train, in my opinion.
I agree with that, but what I see interesting on Train, if we can talk about quickly, let's compare Train and Mirage, for example. Your round starts, you use T side Train, and you start default. Let's say you play 2 Ivy, 1 guy in T main, and 2 guys towards brown halls. You don't have any map control. You don't really have map control to take. You go to Ivy, they block you already directly at the first entrance. Basically, yeah, you are close Ivy, but you cannot do anything there. It's smoke, there's an AWP, whatever. T main, so easy for cities to take. Sometimes you can't. It's too risky to play alone in T middle even as a T. So, which means you have to play outside the T main sometimes. B, brown halls, they will smoke you off. He can play behind the smokes. Obviously, teams have move against that, but other teams, the cities also have moves. If you have a move against, like going through the smoke or whatsoever, so it's very hard. Like because you don't really you have map control, but you don't really have it. You're still like behind everything that you play. For example, Overpass or Mirage, I take mid control. I can push bathrooms back. They will have to always go 1 step behind, 1 step back, 1 step back, 1 step back. And on Train, it's a little bit difficult, and also because the waypoints are very far apart from each other. Let's say I'm Ivy, and then I want to take mid control. I have to walk back because CT Quad can maybe hear me, which makes me again a little bit more readable again for the team if they take control on the other side of the map. or whatsoever. That's why I think it's very hard to play T-side on train. And also I think that it's you have to use your equipment very smart, especially in PopDoc, for example, the utility, because it's super easy for the CTs, or most of the time CTs are taking ladder control, and then you have to have moves against that. How do I get this guy out of PopDoc now? How can I annoy him? How can I make him not be even able to play PopDoc anymore? That it's like a not relevant position for him. And there's so many aspects that you have to take care on Inferno on train compared to other maps, I think. But also the thing is, how I see train, for example, there are certain moves that CTs are doing. Let's say they take mid control. Most of the time, if they take mid control, there is two guys taking it kind of ish. One guy is a little bit behind one guy is flashing, or two guys are just walking together in. Most of the time they flash it, they use a Molotov for left corner. What does this mean for me as a mid player? Guys, they're taking mid control. What does this mean for my teammate? Okay, B might be a little bit weaker. There's only one guy in B. Ivy might be a little bit weaker. We can now go Ivy and use our equipment and do a little bit more pressure on that. So it's a lot reactionary. What is the enemy doing? What can I do now? That's why how I see train, because the CTs are very spread out. One guy in Ivy, one guy middle, one guy top dock, one guy on bomb site, one guy on B, you know? And that's why I can like play around what the CTs are doing, for example.
Actually, one thing I want to ask you about is, because I know for sure you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this. One thing that I thought was very interesting is, just when people looked like they all had like a similar approach to how you go outer on train late last year, was when I saw, the first person I saw do it, so if someone else invented it, sorry, I have to credit this guy because the only person I saw, was when Carrigan came up with that smoke that you do coming out of T-mid, where you have to throw it perfectly off that little like hitch on the train. But if you do it, dude, Carrigan, who obviously isn't like the maddest fragger, he was getting out every time he could put the smoke off. Like, teams just couldn't. Basically, somehow, like, you just can't get to the position to, like, counter it somehow. Do you know the smoke I'm talking about, Hunden?
Yeah, I know it.
Wait, is it the 5-6 smoke or the teammate
No,
smoke?
the smoke in front of teammate. So
You're a fucking legend. I saw your smoke, yes.
And like I actually think that Kerrigan created that kind of meta on train, and I think it popped off really well when they played in Odense against the Starless, and they just wrecked them apart. Like, they couldn't do anything against Kerrigan. Out of nowhere, he have found a new smoke to play around, and Dupree got owned so hard in around that teammate area that game. So I think Kerrigan is by far the guy in 2019 who created the meta around train, and I also think Mousesports was the best team in the world on train.
Yes,
they're not that good anymore, but they were the better team on train in 2019. That's for sure.
It's interesting that one smoke can basically tear down a team like Australia.
Yeah.
Seriously, we had I remember we played them on Overpass in Big, and in my history of Counter-Strike CSGO that I played, I have never in my life beaten the team Dignitas or Astralis or TSM. Never in my life. Whether online, offline, it doesn't matter. And we played them online once, and we played Overpass, and Gob came up with a very fucking crazy idea that he smoked barrels from T-spawn, and we rushed out Monster. And I rushed out Monster, and I was hiding. Obviously, I had good other grenades, flashes, and whatsoever. And Dupree didn't know what to do. He just didn't know what to do. And we won that game, and they even wrote on Twitter afterwards, holy shit, that's how one smoke can take a team out, or like make your life so much harder, which is fucking interesting for me.
Sure.
And it's still like, if people just sit down on a server and have an idea and think of how can I change the meta maybe on a certain map or in a certain position even, it makes such a big impact for your team. Such a big impact.
Listen, when you guys were in the Classic Big, the 2018 one, I remember you guys on train had some fucking sick like Molotovs out the window to like pop and stuff, where some of these were ones where like no normal play, like the whole point is this is where playing FPL doesn't help you star players. Like, you aren't sitting figuring out these smokes. You're playing fucking Mirage trying to win a 1v3 700 times against Simple and Nico. Like, that's going to train some skills. It's not going to give you anything in this game. You're not playing chess. So when you have these weird things like that, the whole thing is, again, it might seem weird because the other person doesn't know what you're doing, but the things you can get out of that, the problem with that approach, right, is you can pour so many hours in an empty server into trying to find a smoke like that, and then you don't, and it was a waste of time. But every time you find one thing that works like that, it can win you a whole match. Sometimes if you get lucky, you can just start winning for the next month while people are figuring it out, right?
Now imagine what luxury we have in CSGO. Imagine back then, Gob is always telling me when he was in 1.6 and trying to find grenades. First of all, he has to do every round a restart. Second, he has to run to the position.
Yes,
Next is he has one fucking smoke, 2 flashbangs.
There's no developer mode, basically, yeah.
After you throw this one smoke, you have to restart and run this whole fucking way back. You don't have SV cheats, no clip and whatsoever.
God B is literally that old boomer granddad. Like, I had to walk all the way home from school in the snow, uphill, while the wind was blowing. He was that guy. You guys are on the bus.
He is. But seriously, there's certain players, I think, that really like to do it. I personally love to fucking go on a server and just throw grenades, find something new, because if I find something new, I don't even have to create something. I just show up. What do you think of this smoke? Interesting. Let's try to find a way. Then we practice it against each other. Flashbang, whatever it is. Molotov. We do a 1-on-1 against it, 2v2. How would I react? How would he react? Get someone who wasn't on a server with us, taps and come server. We want to test something. We don't tell him what we do. We just tell him, okay, play Pop Dog now, for example. He's playing Pop Dog, and then a Molotov is coming from a position he never saw, and then we see how he reacts. And then we try it with every other player, and then we see, okay, 2 people reacted like that. Okay, this is the most common thing that people will do. That's that's what we're going to base this grenade on and how we're going to play it. So, I don't know. I enjoyed doing that, and I know that it had a big impact and help for us, especially for Gob. He has to do so much things that he cannot always go on a server and then still try to find like grenades for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah,
I'll tell you. Go on. Yeah, go on. Man.
Yeah, I think the funny thing about that big team was like all of you was working so hard, and every match you played, you always had something new, something no one have seen before, and it was hard to prepare against because often you didn't play the meta game at all. You just played your own game, and it was really, really hard to play against. We had few games against you when we played in alternate attacks as well, and like it was like I really hated to play against it because you couldn't prepare for it, and you never practiced against it. You just saw 2 new smokes and a good flash, and then it was just like, okay, what the fuck? I just tried to do something funny here and see if I can win the round, and that was really hard to play against, to be honest. And I don't think we will see that again. I don't think we will see that much of a theory crafting team again, because as you said earlier today, it's like every single grenade is found now, and you just have to work around it right now.
Yes, what many people don't know, or many people thought actually, that we were such a strategical team, copy this fucking insane caller whatsoever. No, we basically played in the last 1 year. Only defaults, and it was only reacting. Okay, team is playing like this. Okay, we are adapting now to that. This is how we slow down a little bit your default. Obviously, we had certain styles, we had our executes whatsoever, but most of the time it was just starting default. How is the enemies playing, and then we play based on how they're playing. We felt comfortable doing that. Obviously, we were weaker in certain other things. Maybe we weren't the best exploding team. Maybe we were not the best executing team, but we found our style of playing that fit pretty much the best for us. And yeah, we worked so hard. It was like genuinely 14 hours Counter-Strike every single day. If it's not played, then it's talking. But yeah,
the thing is though, that's also where people wouldn't realize. Like, I do definitely believe in that principle of it. You know, you work smart, not harder, or whatever, you know, like that. There's a logic to that. Like, you can just grind hours and they can be meaningless. But if someone's never tried really putting a lot of hours into something, you actually will naively think, oh, is it just like slightly better than, you know, what I did? It's like, no, if you really do it, the whole sense is in the same way as like when Simple was the best. I mean, Theory's the best now, but who the fuck knows with online Counter-Strike? When he was at his best as a player, one of the reasons I knew he was going to be the best as well is I used to watch his stream a lot, and dude, even when he was on his stream, he was actually like practicing as an individual properly. Like, he would properly practice the grenades against like randoms in matchmaking, not even like high level games. He would practice the same positions over and over again. And so in the same way as doing a million, what you would say like reps, if you think of like doing it in the gym, you know, in the same way as doing a million reps like that just made him super comfortable in any scenario in a pro game. It's like that if you're as a team, if you can really put in the hours. And like he is saying here, you might just be reacting, but you've trained how to react. Like, you've seen every situation. You know what can happen. Nothing's going to surprise you.
This is how it felt basically for us. Like, genuinely, we were ready for every single thing, for every play style of a team, whether if it's like a slow team or a fast team. It really didn't matter. We just played our game, and we knew that our system is punishing basically every single system. Which I also always said, our Counter-Strike, the way of Counter-Strike we played, was by far the best Counter-Strike in the world to play. but it's very, very hard to play and very hard to master. So if you try, and that's where we made the mistake that I said with when we picked our new players up, we tried to implement them fully into our style instead of like balancing our game and maybe adapt a little bit to their knowledge, game style, whatsoever, whatever it is. We didn't do that, and that's why I think we failed, because it took us 2 years, 14 hours a day to reach this point that we can play this Counter-Strike. And if you then take an unexperienced player and try to involve him into your system, he's going to struggle. And it's not going to be even fun for him. It's not going to be fun for him. He cannot shine. He cannot play to his best. So I think, that's where we made our mistake.
Hunden, have you ever actually had a team where you could keep the same 5 players for long enough to do what we're talking about? Because I feel like that's been another one of the things in your career, right? Whenever you get something where it's finally working, problem is because it's finally working, and again, for noobs, when the team structure finally works, magically the star player gets elevated and he looks like twice as good. Spoiler, he didn't get twice as good. Everyone else figured out how to basically make him look twice as good. So then he goes from that team and goes to another team. I can think of many players, Kirby, a few other different names. They go to another team and they look half as good. Yeah, take the hint, guys. They didn't have the same structure, that's it. So, like, you basically always have to deal with the idea that, like, one of the pieces might just be gone tomorrow and I have to get a new piece and then remold it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's like, I think you're right about saying just put them into the same system as you talked about. I think that's a big mistake to do when you get a new player on the team. The thing about Big is, like, they always had issue, like, having the MVP player to get impact. Compared to now with Syrson, he's like a fucking star player, but you had so many different MVPs on that team. But yeah, as you said, like, I have never tried to have the same lineup for more than, I don't know, 6 or 8
months or something. Yeah, it can't be much.
Then I was lucky. Like, so I think I had, like, the longest lineup I had was the lineup with Roy and Tricked, and like that was for, I don't know, 8 months or something like that. So that was funny to try as well, and that was different, to be honest. That was funny. Now we could try to learn the next step in the Strat Book to, like, play around reactions and play around each other. That was a new thing for me as well, and that's the way I think Counter-Strike should be played, because you cannot just win on set executes and crazy things because you cannot create crazy things every single night.
Yes,
that is impossible, to be honest. Like.
You know, one thing, when we were talking earlier, LEGIJA, about the idea of, like, one piece of utility just changing everything, there's another classic one that Carrigan did. I'm going to go way back in time for this, and people will know it's a very famous one, which is where the whole reason his TSM team was the best on the old Dust 2 is because he came up with that ridiculous nade for mid. That meant he didn't have to smoke mid, so he just saved a smoke for mid, because he would throw that grenade there. Because remember, what we didn't know until then was that in CSGO, when you throw the grenade, it gives off that weird little puff of smoke as well within it, like a mini smoke. And he just figured out if you throw it exactly the right spot on the door, it's like a free smoke. So now the guy in B has a smoke. So people might not realize that literally just changed the whole game. Like, suddenly his team has one free piece of utility every round on CT side. And the whole thing about Dust 2, which I want to transition and talk about, is it's because both your teams were obviously good on Dust 2 as well. That, if people don't know, I know MAD Lions now don't even fucking like Dust 2, but they definitely liked it when HUNDEN was in the team, right? When you play Dust 2, one of the reasons why I feel like it'll always be a T-sided map if you play it properly is because it's almost impossible to, like, play CT side the same way every time. You have to basically, like, you have to have lots of creative setups, you have to understand every reaction. If you just play, like, default spots like people might do on a classic map like Nuke, you will get wrecked if you're the CTs against anyone competent. So what's your vision of Dust 2, HUNDEN? It's a map that you've always seemed to gravitate towards.
I actually think that Lewis, Peacemaker, he improved our CT style a lot with a lot of crazy made in Brazil setups. Like, let's stack A, let's gamble a lot, let's do a lot of crazy things. So I actually think he did a lot of good things for our Dust 2. He fixed the CT side a lot. And I was thankful for that, because, like, we always had issues on the CT side. We played a lot of default, as you said, and that is not working out on Dust 2. So he came up with a lot of good ideas on how to play the CT side on Dust 2, and it was working out perfectly. I think we were one of the better teams on that map as well. And I think my last event as well, I think we won against both EG and Virtus on it. So that was okay. And on the T side, I think the T side is a lot about mid-round calls and, like, react fast. Like, you're standing on short, and that's why Astartes have always been the best Dust 2 team in the world. Like, Glaive is, like, the perfect mid-round caller, and, like, he sees the runner is on slope on A side. instantly, let's go split B. Like, he knows how to do the mid-round calling, and that is also one of my good things when I'm the in-game leader. I know how to mid-round call as well, and like react fast, and you have to get every single player on the same page, and that's why doesnt is the harder one. Like, if you don't have everyone on the same page on doesnt, then you're not going to win on doesnt. You're going to have a bad doesnt no matter what. So it's important for the in-game leader and for the rest of the team to be on the same page on how you want to approach doesnt on the T side. And if you can do that, then you will have a good doesnt, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot say too much. Like, on the T side, obviously, you hit the nail in the coffin. It is like very fully how do you call it, a mid-round sided,
Yes.
mid-round calling based. Other than, like, obviously you have these fast plays like taking fast long control, but even if you have the fast long control, you will then have to wait because the CTs have to react. And I think the CT side on the doesnt is actually really disgusting. One way to fix it, I think, or one way that helps is what you call like the gamble stacks, because on how often, like, you can just take the how do you say, the odds in count now. How often does a team rush B? Not so often. That's why teams can say, okay,
Yes.
we can put the fourth guy at the beginning on long. We can start with one guy B. If we smoke, they won't know. They will have to also gamble kinda if we are four guys long. So it is a lot of gambling, but I think the most important thing on doesnt CT side is that you have ideas and answers, basically. If a team has like a certain control, let's say they take fast long control, my answer has to be, okay, I'm taking short control, I'm going towards middle, I'm taking room on B, for example. Because, for example, what I say to my teammates, which they or to my previous teammates, or teammates in general, let's say a team is attacking, we're starting our round is CT, going towards long, and now the enemies are throwing grenades long. Most common, corner smoke, couple flashes. But I always tell my teammates, guys, it's a position where you can get faked super easy. There's a smoke, there's 2-3 flashes, and nothing is coming. And you call, long rush, long rush, long rush. Your teammates are rotating, and then all of a sudden, one guy gets caught off guard. One thing that you can do, if you're going too long, okay, take in consideration, oh, they threw 6 flashes, 5 flashes. What does this mean? There's 3 people here. It's not going to be a fake. For example, that's a thing, like, that's the smallest answer, which people, not every person takes in consideration. And I think doesnt CT is like a lot like reactionary and having ideas and plans how to react on what area the T's have.
Yeah, I think it's important on the CT side doesnt that you do a lot of flash peeks. You flash for each other. You have all the small agreements between each other. The guy in pit and the guy in slope. Like, if they're coming out long, you flash for me, and if they come on the A side, we do flashes for each other. Let's go up short together. Let's get one flash and try to get a kill on the stairs as well. Like, do something all the time on the CT doesnt. If you don't do that, if you just stay in your position, yeah, then you're going to die. Then you're going to lose the round, no matter what. Like, you can't do anything on doesnt if you just stay and wait for them. You have to be like on the attacking side, on the CT side, if you can say it like that, because if you don't do anything, then you're going to lose. That's for sure.
It's easy to execute, and once you have the bomb side control, like, you cannot retaking B is like almost impossible.
Yes,
like you are in a 2v4, your advantage is T almost not. You're not really an advantage, but you have higher odds to win the round. And also on A, I think that the T is a little bit more favored in 2v2s, for example. So it's very hard. You have to deny the bomb plant, basically, and the X on X in the end.
I've got a fun anecdote for you. I can't say the name of the person, right? The name isn't relevant. Basically, a couple of years ago, I was talking to a legendary 1.6 leader, but he's someone who'd never played CSGO, he'd never followed CSGO, and he just came back to esports. Like, you know, when people come in and they're like, oh shit, it's like a huge industry, and all of a sudden they get interested, like, oh, let's see what's going on here. And then cause the maps, listen, in theory, they're the same maps. Like, doesnt looks the same as like 1.6, right? He didn't understand that, even though, you know, a lot of like similar principles do apply about the game because they're just fundamental to Counter-Strike. Certain things about specific spots don't work at all because the game engine's so different. So this is what he really was telling me, dude. When he watched the best players in the world, he was watching like a major or something. He was trying to tell me like his take on the game, and it was so bad because he was telling me shit like, none of these teams understand doesnt. I used to understand doesnt. It was my map. And so he was telling me like, look, Why is no one in short right now? Where are the 2 players in short? I would have my 2 guys there. We're going to set up. We're going to do stacks. And I was like, dude, you're a legend, but you better stay the fuck out of CSGO because it's going to be bad for you if you try coming in thinking you can play like old school 1.62 people play a catwalk all the time as CT. I said, literally, I don't think you've experienced CSGO utility, dude. You will be blind, naked, you'll be fucked, basically. Like, you will never survive the round. There's a reason why the meta now, sometimes on air on CSGO is like 1 guy's around the site and that's it, and he's really far out. Like, you just have to let them come to that catwalk pretty much, unless you want to. That's why even the people who hold catwalk angle, you hold it super far back so you can fall away instantly. Like that aspect of the game in CSGO doesn't exist. There's no one playing 2 catwalk every round. Come on.
No, obviously not. Yeah, you also have to be balanced. But the thing is, CSGO and 1.6 comparing is like, just because there is Molotovs in the game, it's already impossible.
Yes.
Like, just because there is Molotovs in the game, there is positions that you are never able to play that you used to play in 1.6. Flashes, and like, it's so much more equipment based, I think. It's very hard to play. Like, you have to fucking play smart Counter-Strike these days. Back then it was so much easier, so much easier. Back then also, like, for example, in 1.6, how many scenes do you remember where they rush up cat and 1 guy is spraying like 4 guys down with an M4? So often. Do that in CSGO. Do that against an eco. You have no chance. You said it, I think, a year ago, 2 years even, that you don't see these guys like spraying 5 people down with an M4 in an eco. It's impossible. You die. The movement is way too fast. The guns are more accurate. You can shoot whilst running. It's so much harder than in 1.6.
Dude, even the eco, like, I almost think we should get rid of that term. Like, eco in 1.6 meant 5 guys with Glocks, a dog shit gun, by the way, trying to shoot me, where I have, like, the Colt in 1.6 is a beautiful spray weapon. It's so perfect. Try doing that against the guy in CSGO. That eco we're talking about, half the time they have a fucking deagle. It's like, if you have 4 people with a deagle just while I'm crouched, like, I'm definitely going to be dead. Like, one of them's going to get it. And if I'm not, imagine the body shots I'm taking from that deagle. Like. It shouldn't even count as an eco in the old way, should it?
It's very hard. I mean, obviously, like, also with our...
Because, I don't know if you ever heard this, but it's one of the reasons I was able to help, like, turn Device's career around is one in terms of the reputation. Because, listen, I'll just be straight up. Device in the old days, listen, he is a bit more of a beta. He was someone who played a little bit more safe and passive because he tries to be a very cerebral player, right? But the problem was fans obviously just love like smash mouth Counter-Strike. They like Virtus Pro who run in, big balls and just smash you and direct you. You can't do anything. So they think anyone who doesn't play like that's shit at the game, right? So they used to famously say, all Device's kills, he's just cleaning up ecos. And I used to make that point. I was like, dude, this isn't 1.6. Like in CSGO, if you had 5 people or 4 people rush you and you clean up all those kills, you're doing a fucking amazing job for your team. You're not letting bombs get down. You're killing all those guys. You're saving your guns. You're not like fucking hell. The implied value of that's like through the roof.
Yeah.
One thing that earlier we were discussing, I want to ask you about is because you hinted at it there. On Dust 2, you see it especially from Glaive. Because listen, if anyone hasn't noticed yet, the really good teams on Dust 2 just control the mid because then you control all the rotations of the CTs and you're just playing cat and mouse with them at that point in time. Like, it's an Astralis trend on all the maps, but you definitely see it on this map. I think they might be the best team I've ever seen at punishing rotations. Like, here's the best way to think of it. Imagine you're watching the opponent's POV, like you're watching where he is on the CT side, right? And you're waiting in the round, right, okay, they've killed a guy at A, I'm going to watch this guy flank, right? He's going to come through lower Tark, or he's going to come through the mid doors, right? In your brain, because you've watched so many games, you're waiting till it gets interesting. Like, I'm going to wait till he's in the site and he has a chance to win it. They never get to do that. Like, he'll always be killed by some guy behind him or some lurker, or fucking Glaive at the last second will turn back from catwalk and shoot as he's coming through the doors. And it feels unfair when you're watching the other team. You're like, what the fuck? I never even get to play the game. What is this shit? Like, these guys are too good. Like, that strength, you can't teach that. I mean, you can, but it just takes fucking a billion hours, you know.
It's experience, man. That's so much experience and understanding of how the teams are playing and understanding the meta and, like, understanding of how the enemies are also playing. And then for Glaive, for example, I'm assuming that he's going to watch more demos than his other teammates will. And he will understand, like, way more, like, rotations. If A is happening, B is their answer. If C is happening, D is their answer. So he will have a better understanding of timings in general, I think. But yeah, I think he's fucking insane. He's mind-blowing.
He is fucking crazy. And like, when I played with him in my first team in Source, like, he was 13 years old. Like, I don't know he was just like born to be a mid-rank caller. He did all the mid-rank calls. Like we were like 18, 19 years old, and he was just like guiding us through everything. He was just like I don't know, like there was the way he was mid-rank calling. Like he was, yeah, exactly. It was so crazy, and I think he still uses it. But of course, he's also watching a lot of demos. He's prepared for his enemies. He knows how they do the rotations and stuff like that. And if you know that and does too, then you're going to have a really good C side when you stand on short and just wait until like the last second, and then you just execute your things, and you know how to do it probably all the time. And that's why he is so good at doing the mid-rank call. And no matter what team he will join, like if he was leaving a Starless, I'm pretty sure he will make it into top 5 again, top 3. Like the way he's mid-rank calling is just like crazy to see, to be honest.
This is straight fire. I've just thought of this now. So if anyone's a fan of mine, I'll definitely forget it. So write this down and send it to me because it's fucking sick. Here's the line for you, LEGIJA. What's the reason why that ability that Glaive has? Why do we call it the sixth sense? Here's the answer. Because he sees dead people. They just don't even know they're dead yet. Oh, fucking, that's actually fine. I'm going to write that down. So what I'm going to do, LEGIJA, is I'm going to rework that into like a broadcast as though it was a real thought I had in the moment. You know, it's pretty good, but it's too good to waste on a YouTube video. It's too good to waste on a YouTube video.
Great.
That's pretty good. That's not bad. Let me think. What was I going to talk about next? Oh, I've got a question for you, actually, Hunden. One thing also about your career that is so brutal, right? I described earlier where you used to have that problem where you make your team, you get the structure, you have a couple of players who stick with you as the core, then in comes the young player, could be Config, could be whoever the fuck, Yogi, all these players. Like, if anyone doesn't know, if you just make a list of all the star players you know in Denmark, except like Device and Dupree, like Hunden just had all those guys, but like 2 years before you know who they are. So just all of them, literally. It's like he's got like the craziest Rolodex ever, like, you know, like an agent where they're going through all the names of the people in the industry. Like his would be mental. He'd had everyone. So when he would have that, right, that's one type of problem. The one he's had recently where he got removed from MAD Lions is the maddest one ever. I've never seen that happen before, dude. You make a whole team so good that they just take the whole team from you, dude. Like, they don't even just take one piece. They just took the entire team. They were like, you know what? We'll take it all. Oh, except the Hunden part. We don't want that. Like, what? I'm in this team. That's my team. Like, yeah, thanks for that, but we're just going to take the entire team, actually. Like, you have to start from nothing now. That's brutal.
That's brutal. I totally agree.
Listen, didn't you wake up one day and just think, what was this my reward for getting them really good? They just take all of them. Like that's kind of fucked up. Wasn't there some angle? Were you not just like, come on, guys?
Yeah, like I was a bit surprised as well, but that was fucking brutal. I don't know. It's, yeah.
I seriously wonder, and I was thinking of that. And I'm gonna ask you, and I really want an answer for you, Hunden. What do you think? Where would FaZe be if you would lead this team?
Ooh, I think they would be better than they are right now, to be honest. Like, it's hard to say. Like,
where do you think would you be in the top world ranking list?
I think it would be a top 5 team, but it also depends on like how much respect they would have for me. Like,
yes,
like it's hard to say because it depends on the leadership. To be honest, if Nico didn't listen to me, then like I don't think it will work out in that way. But it would be. I think we could make it good. Like they did that with Kerrigan, and I think my calling is on the same level as his is. So I think we could make it good. I think we could be a top 5 team with that lineup for sure.
Thing is, the reason why I kind of agree with him, LEGIJA, I know fans are just going to be like, that's outrageous, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing that they don't get, though, is I've always said, I said this on the last episode about FaZe Clan, the thing I find so underwhelming about FaZe Clan is they don't even succeed with what the premise and the main marketing selling point is, which is they've got all the sick aimers that shoot everyone. It's like, that doesn't work on its own. Like, actually, let's face it, if I take Rain from the last couple of years and I put him in like a Norwegian team and I make him the star and give him all the resources, he'll frag twice as hard. If I take fucking Olaf Meister, who looked washed up the last year, but I put him onto like young Nip or something like that, and I make him back in a good spot, I bet instantly be back in a good form. Maybe not his prime, but he'd be good. So the point I would make is this. If you pick whichever player you want and put Hunden in and then let him do... Listen, you have to give him the keys to the car. You can't just make him an IGL. Like, you can't do what they did when they brought Neo in, where they were basically like, listen, dude, we're going to say you're the in-game leader, but that's so that you take all the blame. We're not going to do any of this shit that you want. And then when he did nothing, they were like, get the fuck out. Like, that's kind of whack to me. So if you bring the guy in, you've got to give him a proper chance. Because what's the point in recruiting him? But if you do that, here's why it'll work. Yes, Hunden won't magically frag out. In fact, the fact he's playing against the best teams in the world, he might have lower frags. But someone else in that team, I guarantee, will perform better than they were before. And that's the difference, because they have some of the best players. So whoever he will like figure out how to use more effectively, that'll win you the game. I really think it's plausible.
Duncan, don't forget, like, take Kerrigan, for example. You always consider him as one of the best Ingame leaders, correct?
Sure.
I think everyone would agree on that. His rating is also not the best rating in the world. Now take in consideration, his team is winning way more games than Hunden's team is doing. His teams have higher scores than other teams than Hunden's teams are doing. So Hunden's game will also improve. He's playing with better players. It doesn't mean that he's going to stay 0.85 rating player. He can become a 0.93 rated player, which is a huge fucking difference. And for an Ingame leader, a very solid rating, or like an actual okay rating. So I think that a guy like him can make this team so much stronger with the potential they first of all have, and second of all losing by Nico calling. Imagine Nico not calling, how much better he could be actually.
Yeah, it could be funny to see again, like Nico just shining and just shooting people like he did in Mouse Sports, just having fun. And,
of course.
And if they could find out that way again, like I think it will be the key for FaZe to have success again. But I think Nico has been a leader for too long now, so I don't think he can give up the leadership anymore. I think he's the in-game leader now, and that's just how it is. I don't think he can take it away again. Here's
the problem. Based on some conversations I've had with people, I'll do like one of those like things to do on like the news, like sources close to them. Like I can't say who it is, right? I have to keep my connections, otherwise I'll have no more connections, guys. There'll be no more fucking straight fire info. I'll just tell you this: the problem Nico has is this. He actually knows. He does know, believe me, guys, that he isn't the best IGL. He knows that he's probably never going to be the best IGL. His problem is, think about it logically. If he couldn't trust Kerrigan, who the fuck can he recruit? My joke used to be like this. The only person that you can get is he would have to get Glaive to join his team when Glaive's already beating his team and winning everything. It's like, that's like, here's what I would say to you if you're Nico. If the only scenario that would work for you for an IGL is someone that has no reason to join your team, joins your team, you've got the wrong view of the game, mate. Because you're doing exactly what actually LEGIJA just pointed out there. You're looking at people on worse teams and thinking, well, they'd just be even worse than my team. You're not realising actually they might be better. Like, with you as the star player, mate, they might be even better. Maybe they don't even need to frag out. Like, so the problem is he can't sort of trust any of the people below, like, the absolute top 2-3 in-game leaders there are in the entire game. He just thinks, like, unless I can have them, which, like I say, isn't on the table right now, he just looks at, like, I'll give you an example, an MSL, and he thinks, I don't want that guy. Like, he's got this flaw, that flaw. And it's like, dude, like, right now, I'd give that kind of person a try. Like, I'd at least experiment with it.
Of course. Duncan, you might know it, or either of you. How long does Nico call, roughly, for FaZe?
I mean, now I'm thinking the last couple of years, most of the time. Because remember, Kerrigan got removed from them, Face It Major, which is like, I think it's like August 2018. Dude, it's 2020 now.
Yes, it's 2 years. First of all,
most of that time, at least, you had the others,
The game has changed a lot, first of all. Second, back then, Nico was a younger player. Nico was, to this point, with Simple, by far the number one player.
Yes.
These days, he is not anymore. There is more competition. There is Zaivu. There is so many other players that are fighting for this spot. And I think that he also has grown as a person. And now, for example, let's talk about Brokey and Bimas. You never heard of them complaining at all. They always said like very respectful things about them. True. They said that they never had any issues, that if they make mistakes, they were always nice and tried to help them. So I think that they understand already, I think, that if they have like that it won't be like this, how do you say, I'm the star player, you don't, like how he dealt with the situation with Kerrigan, you know?
Yes.
He's been an ass, and not an ass, but yeah, he hasn't been the nicest guy, I guess. And kicking Kerrigan obviously was the fucking craziest idea that
I want to talk about that. Because most people disagree with that because obviously they're fans. Listen, you have to understand, a lot of fans, it's like politics. They just like people they like. It's not about what the person stands for, what they're going to do. They just like this guy and they work backwards from that. Because they like him, whatever he says must be right and whatever he thinks must be, they go like that. So as a result, the reason why fans were never going to agree that you shouldn't have kicked Carrigan, is because they think, well, Nico's the best. If Nico says it, then I agree with Nico. It's like, well, guess what? One of my strengths as a person on camera, and it's always been my strength, is you'll never see me just turn around and start sucking the dick of the player. If I think the player doesn't know what he's talking about, I'll straight up tell him, like, listen, mate, you stick to fucking shooting crosshair headshots and I'll do the talking and thinking, bitch, and I'll get back to that. Like, there's a reason you're paid for that and I'm paid for this, so you stay in your lane, I'll stay in my lane. No, because the point I have is this: I do disagree with that, and this is where I disagree. Based on things I know behind the scenes and actually knowing Carrigan in his career for a long time, he has, at most of the times when he got kicked from the best teams, Astralis, in this case, FaZe Clan, who knows what's going to happen with Mousesports because they're in a bad shape right now. It could eventually happen to him again. When he gets kicked, right, all his teammates say the same thing. For the last couple of months, you know, they were getting a bit more skeptical about his calling, and they were like, couldn't trust him as much because it wasn't working as much. Basically, that's the real translation. And I get it. Listen, as an in-game leader, when things don't work, eventually you can second guess yourself, or you feel like you feel for the game's gone with these players. Maybe you make the wrong calls. It's like, fuck, I did throw that game away, guys. But this is what I think's dirty that no one ever talks about. If we have a really superstar player, one of the best in the world at his role, so I'm making a fair comparison because Carrigan is historically one of the best at his role. If the star player, so think about like Fur and MIBR sometimes the last couple of years. Think about fucking someone like Olof Meister the last few years in some of the teams he was in, even in Sweden. Think about Guardian when he was in FaZe Clan. These are some of the best players, but they go through like 6 months, 3 months where they're slumping. You don't just kick them instantly. You go, right, you know what? If I can get this guy through this slump, he'll be one of the best again. It's worth like putting up with it and hoping he figures his shit out. No one does that with in-game leaders like Carrigan. They're just caught like this. You're out. Get the fuck out. So as a result, I agree, Nico. You might have had a bad 6 months. Maybe that was just going to be a fucked up period. But the point is, you gave up the next years that you might have had. Maybe the meta swinges. Maybe a new map comes out. Maybe you get a different player in the team, and then suddenly something changes. Because to me, the idea it's just the IGL. I think it's so rarely ever going to just be that. That's it. That feels like kind of a whack angle to take. You know, I just disagreed with it fundamentally.
The fucked up thing is also many people have to understand. Let's say I'm FaZe Clan, for example, and I'm Carrigan. I'm dealing with our FaZe. They were like, let's say they were a top 3 team in the world, top 5 team.
Yes.
And teams will copy from you. Teams will study you. For us in Big, when we had our run from 0 to whatever we came, teams didn't watch our games. Teams didn't analyze us because we played our fucking game. So teams didn't think, how is Big playing? How can I interrupt them? How can I attack them? How can I disrupt their game? But for FaZe, it's so much different. Every team is looking up to FaZe. Every team is studying FaZe. So every team will adapt more to your game, understand your game. And by most of the teams watching your games, they will adapt their game style. So if I'm watching now, let's say, G2 game, they have also learned from FaZe a lot of things. Oh, they're also playing kind of FaZe-ish style. So many teams are playing this style. So it's very hard for us to play. Teams know how we play. I have to fucking, as an in-game leader, also change my game plan, my everything, my system, whatsoever. And it's not done just like this, you know. As you said, you have to give this guy time. Same goes for an AWPer. If he has a period where he's slacking, it could be just because teams fucking prepare for your game. The team study you. You were the best AWPer in the world. I have a reason to watch you. Yes. I have to learn from you. And it's your job then to take the next step and find a way, how can I counter my own game, basically. And which is, for you, in the end, the easiest thing to do. You just counter your own game. You know your game. And you know the answers that could punish you.
Yeah, I think the way you're going into this is like, I think the top 8 teams in the world is also the teams who is setting the meta. Yes. What is working, what is not working right now. And people will always just watch top 8 teams in the world and see what they do. And then it starts to become a meta, and then they have to find something new to do. And I think that is one of the harder things for Carrigan to do, is like changing the way he's playing the game. And then some of the players start to doubt him. I think some of the Starless players did that, and some of the FaZe players did it as well. And then he's going to be removed from the team, and then they just pick up a new leader. It worked out for Starless pretty well, but it didn't work out for FaZe because they never found a new leader for them. But I actually see the same things is going on in Mousesports right now. What is the next move for them? Do they trust Carrigan enough to let him stay on the team? Or will they do the same as Starless and FaZe did? It worked out once, and it didn't work out for FaZe at all. Yes. So that is the question right now. Did he lose the team again, or like I'm not sure if he lost the team in either Astralis or FaZe, but you can see it in that way that he lost the team actually, and it's a hard way to say it, but it could end up being the same in Mousesports right now. But I doubt they will do that. But that would be too crazy for them to remove Kerrigan right now, because there's no leader who could take his position and to make this team into a top 5 team again. I think Kerrigan is the right guy for this team, but that is the story about Kerrigan right now. Like,
yes.
I'll be super honest. I kind of low-key want him to get not kicked, but
just to show them,
just to see what other team is he gonna make good. What region is he go? China and make fucking title team in the world.
No, dude, I always said this.
Interesting. Like, he always makes after he gets kicked, he always comes back with the team, regardless what team he has. He will make it.
That's why when he actually did get kicked from FaZe, the 2 teams I wanted him to go to was either a team like Team Liquid, like just give him all the NA flaggers and just watch what he'll do with them, or the other one was make a Danish team to rival Astralis, like give him all, like at the time the players who weren't in Astralis, so give him like Valde and Config and give him those players, and again just fucking turn him loose. Here's the other thing as well though, LEGIJA, I would also like to see it, because if I know the players want the guy kicked, I want them, just like Nico, I want them to be a little bit humbled by seeing, because you know what, when he got kicked from FaZe Clan, think of where FaZe Clan was, like you said, they were still like a top 5 team in the world, they were still winning tournaments, Nico was one of the best players in the world, and they had all that salary money, so when he get kicked, right, logically, if you pause time and say to Nico, listen, I don't know what happens to FaZe Clan, but Kerrigan's definitely not going to be better than you guys in a year, right? He's going to be like, yeah, no problem. Then he takes a bunch of players. Listen, at that moment in time, if I said, what if I gave him Rops, Frozen, Woxy, would they be better than you guys? He'd be like, no way. A year later, he was in like every final. Nico was fucking at home watching him online with his popcorn. Like, I used to play with that guy. Like, I love that. If you're an IGL, that's like the ultimate revenge. Like, I got such sort of like schadenfreude from that. I was just loving it, like, delicious. Nico's tears, love them. I even like the guy, but listen, he needed to learn the lesson in that way. He had to learn the hard way.
I genuinely think he did. And you have to be stupid if you don't learn from the mistake that they did. I think, in my opinion, it's a mistake. I think they will see that the same way.
But it seems like they haven't learned from it yet. Like, they haven't found a leader for them. Like, they're still clueless what they're doing. They pick up.
But who should they pick up?
Yeah, I think the obvious one would be to just pick up Alex. Like everyone is saying, that would be the perfect matchup for them. I don't know. Like I don't see him as a good in-game leader either. Like he had Saivu in Vitality, and he was just carrying the team. But if Alex created that part of Vitality, then he could also make Nico shine again together with Coursera. That could be the perfect duo to win. Did
you see his buyout?
Yeah,
from the news, what I read, God knows.
That's real, by the way. I can confirm it's real.
I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, 600k. It's real.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. They're going to face it. Say, I want.
But it is swear. I'll tell you right now. If that number wasn't 600k, I'd have already had him in a Flashpoint team. But the problem is, this is where people are fuckers in Counter-Strike. It's one thing telling me, I want to come to Flashpoint. Yeah, no problem, mate. I'll hook it up, right? This guy, let's talk to him. Let's get these interviews set up. Listen, as soon as they go, right, okay, we're interested. What's the buyout? 600k. It's like all of a sudden there's like, you turn around, there's no one in the room. Like, what? Where do you, guys, where did everyone go? Like, listen, 600k is what we buy for like Nico. We don't buy the in-game leader for that. Listen, I know it might be worth it in the long run, but the problem is I can sell you that, like I'll give you an example. Even if it's a crazy angle, if it's 600k buyout for Bobsky, right now, listen, if I do like a really creative presentation as to why he'll transform the team and look at his trend, and he's got all these unique qualities, maybe I can get someone to buy it, but like, they're not going to see the vision for the IGL for 600k. Yes. No way.
It's very hard. And I think that's why I said, like, I swear to you, I was thinking and I said, if they just take, like, for example, HUNDEN as an in-game leader, it will make them so much better. That's why I wanted to honestly hear your opinion. Where would you see this team? And I genuinely think that this team can win many tournaments. For this team, it doesn't matter who is your in-game leader. There's teams that have been proven that they can be on the top with not the best fragging in-game leaders. Obviously, it's going to be harder. They will maybe not be as consistent as Astralis is, but they can. And fucking Pronox won also tournaments back then with his team. But his 4 other players were insane.
Yes.
And that's why I think don't always look for the statistics. This Counter-Strike era is also over. It's not anymore this fucking 5 fragging guys and everyone just fucking playing very loose Counter-Strike. You have to have structure, especially because what I said, the meta right now is allowing you to have the the luxury of having a proper in-game leader who is having a good game plan, where you as a insanely good player, one of the best players in the world, can just focus on your game and just trust this person. Because I say also in Counter-Strike, there is no one way how to play Counter-Strike. There's better ways, there's worse ways, 100%, but every single way can work if I execute it correctly. Obviously, I can get lucked. I sometimes have to have luck as well myself, but there is no certain way to play Counter-Strike. But having a way, that's why I say teams like, that's why I think that the teams from HUNDEN have so much success, because his team is trusting him. He has one system. His system obviously is thought through. He has experience. He knows what he's doing, but he has a system. And if his team is just following the system, and obviously they are skilled to a certain extent, they can easily reach a top 10, top 15 position easily. And compare his players that he had with the team from FaZe. This is still worlds between. And he has made something with Tricked and with other teams before that very, very few in-game leaders have done in history of Counter-Strike, I think.
I'll tell you something else, right, that might actually, I don't know if you're aware of all of
Let's
this.
Let's go HUNDEN to FaZe.
You might know a little bit about some of this detail, right? But another thing that's insane about HUNDEN's career, like, put it this way, I actually think, almost half jokingly, half true, like back in the day of like the feudal system in history, where you had like lords who owned the land, and then the person who worked on the land, they would have to give like a percentage of the money. They would have to do what you call tithe to the lord. It's like a tax that you pay because, he's the guy who's like owns the area and looks after everyone, right? Everyone in Denmark, everyone, except like Device to pray, a couple of people, should have to pay like a percentage of their tax of their prize money just to HUNDEN every year, like 5% or sometimes. Because this is the thing, not only did he raise all the stars, the sickest thing ever is this detail I'm going to tell you now, LEGIJA, right? The following names: Glaive, MSL, Snappy, Asilian. These guys all used to play with HUNDEN, then became the IGL. These motherfuckers just sat there watching what he was doing, and then came out, and then they were like, I'm like a good IGL now. It's like, dude, you would just start watching him. You would just listen to what he was doing. Like, dude, that's brutal. You're training these fuckers as well.
See, that's a fucking interesting thing that you say that. Let's take, for example, GOP and HUNDEN. GOP has been, since 1.6, one of the best in-game leaders in Germany. But yet, have you ever heard of a second very good in-game leader apart from Moon in 1.6 back then? There is none.
No.
There is none. But see the difference in Denmark, for example. He has so many players that he crafted into or taught them so much of the game that they can become a very good in-game leader themselves. So like learn the basics from him and see how he basically learned. Obviously, he has learned throughout his career, obviously, a lot as well. And the team can see what he's learning, how he's changing the game if you are a little bit smart person. So that's why fucking mad respect. So you have to do something correct.
Yeah. They should build a fucking statue to you, HUNDEN. Obviously, it'd be really hard to make that statue with all the fucking curly hair. That'd be probably impossible, but
I will do my best. I will find them. And they're fucking done.
What do you think about that though? Because dude, that's amazing how many of those IGLs were like I'm guessing some of them were like secondary callers and stuff in the team, right?
Actually, only Glaive did that.
Okay.
I was a bit surprised when out of nowhere Snappy became the in-game leader for Heroic back then, and they won Power Lane and stuff like that against the Starless. That was the one who surprised me most. Like, I never see Snappy came out as a good in-game leader. I think he's good at doing it now. He got a different system than everyone else on of those leaders. So I think that one was the one who surprised me most. But he was also going under the fragging in-game leader thing because he was shooting hard again, and that's also why they picked him up for Uptick, because now we are going to create the next super Danish team without any of the Starless players. It didn't work out good, and I think if they had picked up me on that team, it would have been way different, because they had I think they had a perfect lineup if they had a really good in-game leader, in my opinion. So that's how I see it, and I'm surprised that Snappy became a good in-game leader, to be honest.
Didn't Snappy used to call in TCM in 1.6, Duncan?
Oh no,
Was it
No.
Barry was
yeah.
in game.
Right,
Yeah, but
By
I
the
think
way, there you know, there's like a classic saying in some sports, like in the NBA, they always say if you can shoot the ball, like you can have a career basically until the end of like you want to finish playing, because you can always just be a guy who stands in the corner and just shoots the ball. Like, you don't have to run. It's the same with being like a good IGL. If you have the basic skills, you know, like people, if they don't know that, this is how depressing this is. People might be like, oh, Barry, yeah, I remember that name from 1.6, right? Bad news for you. He's been playing CSGO the whole time. It's just he's not ESL Cologne or whatever, you know, he's just at the level, like 2 levels below. But the guy never stopped. He's still playing probably now, right? Is he still on some fucking team? He's just always, you know, he's just always in like the 80th best team in the world or whatever, isn't he? Red respect though for keeping going.
Yeah, he's playing all the time. I don't know what he's doing, to be honest. Like right now he's not even playing for a top 10 team in Denmark, but he's like fragging every single week, 5 times each week. So he's fucking crazy. I don't know what is going on with him.
If you can allow it yourself without messing up your real life, I guess, then why not?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Just saying, I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know his background. I don't know. He might be secure. Quickly, I want to talk about your team right now, and mostly about Cadian. I don't know if you have ever played with him before, coaching him.
Yeah, I played with him for like 2 months or something like that. So
Okay.
we were trying to create a team, but not
How
that much.
he is surprising me a lot in the last 1.5 years, maybe. I always knew. I obviously played also with him. I knew he had the talent to a certain extent, but ever since he came back from this rogue team in NA,
Yes,
he's been a different person. And I wonder what made him to be this person. Maybe you know, because I remember back then that he had like his personality got in his own way kind of often. He was quite a little bit childish, maybe a little bit disrespectful. Didn't know how to talk with people in serious occasions. And I really wonder what makes him now being such a. He's also the caller, right? The game leader.
He's the game leader, yeah.
Yes, What do you think about Ling? Like, if you can talk a little bit about him, because I'm really curious.
First of all, I want to say that Mousebots did the worst pickup ever by picking up Cadian after that major. But after all, when he came back,
it was nice. He was good at talking. He got me somehow.
Yeah.
He got me somehow.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
I think everyone was surprised. But I think when he came back from Rogue, I think he was a different person. I think he grew a lot in NA. And he became a different person. He got to North pretty fast after that, maybe from Rogue to North actually.
Yes.
And I think he lost the team pretty much. They didn't believe in his way to call. Like he wants to just do a lot of mid-round calls, play Counter-Strike like they did in 2015. Just like let's go 4B and turn around and go away. They didn't make any agreements on the server. They just played like.
Do you think the whole respect thing was already before that, or they actually gave him the actual chance? Because I think an organization like North will be professional and they will take care of like the team environment with managers or whatsoever, mental coaches. Did they actually give him the real chance, or do you think there was a lot of doubt at the beginning already?
I actually think they gave him the real chance. I think they had Miffer as the coach at that moment, and he's pretty good at like talking to the rest of the team that we need to give this a chance. We need to like make it work out in a good way, so everyone is happy, everyone is believing the system. But I think it's hard for like players like Kjærby and Icy to like accept a player like Cadian. They're getting an in-game leader who just played for Rogue. They made to top. I'm not even sure they made it into top 16 at that major. No. And then out of nowhere, he's the leader of the team. Come here, you just like lead the team now, and they have to trust to make it into top 8, top 10 again, and be a top team. And I don't think they gave him enough respect to like show him that his system is working out. I think you're totally right about that one. So at some point, like they made one bad result, and he was out of the team, and when he got removed from the team, like everything just started to fall apart, and we see where North is today. Like I don't think they will ever get into a top 10 team again. Like I cannot see them do that. So after that, he came to Heroic. He was not even the in-game leader in the beginning. Snappy was calling for the team, but they didn't trust Snappy's system at some point because like they felt like they got anti-stratted by a team called MAD Lions. and they got wrecked all the time, I guess. So we just owned them all the time, and they changed the in-game leader out of nowhere. Like, if we lose to MAD Lions, we just changed the in-game leader, and they started to have some clashes with each other, Snappy and Cadian, and like Snappy was removed from the team, and that makes sense, to be honest. And when I came to the team, I actually understood why we won against them all the time. Like, MAD Lions was just a better team in every single piece of the game plan, every single player on the team. MAD Lions was just a better team. And I said that, like, I understand why you lost to them every time. And that was, like, it was hard. I think it was hard for them to hear that. And then I started to, like, create my system into Cadian's system. Still some random calls sometimes. I'm not sure if I agree on all of them, but that's just the way to be a coach, I guess. You don't have to agree all the time and just be a part of it. But we are working a lot together now. I explain I want to make more structure because I don't think you can win with random Counter-Strike anymore. That is not possible to just go out here, just shoot them. Because every single player in top 30 right now can hit the shots and just own you if you do just a small mistake. So he is growing a lot right now, and I think he's calling better and better now. Like the last month, I think he called like 10 times better than he had ever called in his career. And I'm really happy to have him as the leader right now.
Well, I like that he's maintaining still his fragging ability, and even if not, even increases it with every 2-3 months. I would say, because right now I think he's a very, very consistent fragging in-game leader, and he's playing a decent level. I would say, like, obviously he's not in the highest right now, but I can see him becoming maybe someday. He's still young. How old is he? 23?
25. He became 25.
Oh, he's 25 already. Okay, older than I actually thought.
But the main thing about Cadian is, like, I actually told him to, like, focus more on your own game. Then I focus on our game. Then I focus on the T sides, the CT sides. Just focus on yourself, so we can get that fracking in-game leader thing. And when you decide to be an in-game leader and be the MVP as well, then you need to have, like, at least 1.10 rating, and that's just how I see it as the MVP on the team. If you don't have the MVP on the top team, on the top 20 team, whatever you are, then you're not going to win anything if you don't have the MVP on your team. So I told him, focus on yourself, then I will fix the whole team game around us. And that will be hard for me, but it will also be easier for him to lead the team later on, in my opinion.
Here's how you know that Cadian and his reputation, and because of his personality, unfortunately, earlier in his career held him back and fucked over his career. He's Danish. He's played all of CSGO from the beginning, and yet he played longer with fucking LEGIJA in the German scene than he played with HUNDEN in the Danish scene. That's how you know you fucked your career up, homie. Like,
No, it's true. And also losing 1-on-1 to Giuliano.
That doesn't help either, and that will never be forgotten, I'm afraid. That will never be forgotten. So, this video was kindly supported by Jack Hanna, Dean Tanglis, Soliko, Bobby, Spencer Green, Istar, What Are Things, Xinged, Alexander Rao, Tobias Bernasconi, JDubs, the Puyallup Tribe, Jensen Goh, and of course, a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you'd like to ask a question in one of those monthly video AMAs I do. Do you want teasers? See who the upcoming guests are for my work? Maybe you want to be part of one of those donator discussions with me each month. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today by the description box link to Patreon below.